Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Brighton Astrology Circle, this 18th of January 2023. And tonight I'm very pleased to present myself. As your chairman, I'm giving you a talk tonight. So I thought I'd just maybe say a little bit about what I'm planning to do for 2023 as my introduction. I've embarked on a really exciting new project, and I've started making talismans, which are very powerful magical items, actually. It's really about enhancing your astrology. So it's about birthing a spirit into an object. And here is an example of what I'm doing. This is a Jupiter talisman. So it's made in pewter, which is the metal of Jupiter. As you can see, this is the Zeusamon from. So it's a combination of the Egyptian deity for Jupiter plus Zeus, the Greek deity. And the Romans eventually called him Jupiter. So there's Zeusamon. And on the back here are the sigils and the magic square of Jupiter. These make Jupiter reside in a happy home. So these are the right things to put for Jupiter to be happily residing within this talisman. And I cast it at an amazing time. So if you're interested in one of these, come and talk to me about it. I'm supplying it. When you buy a talisman, you also get an amazing booklet that I've produced here, which is printed on lovely paper. And it's all the hymns and prayers to Jupiter and how to go about consecrating your talisman so that it improves your life. So if you understand, if you've ever had a Jupiter transit before, you can now move forwards more with your Jupiter because you understand what a Jupiter transit can do. Now it's about literally making wishes with your talisman at the right time of day, which is Thursdays. That's Jupiter day. So jeudi in French, or jueves in Spanish, is Jupiter day, and Thursday. And you can make wishes on Thursdays with a talisman, with the right prayers, and things can really work out very interestingly for you. So I would like to highly recommend these because they're working for me very well already. And so do come along and ask me about them. I think I haven't been an astrologer for so many years. I'm finally getting this art into something, making it into something. And I've got on the way a Venus talisman. That's the next one I'm doing, will be a Venus talisman in February. So when Venus is in Pisces, I'll be making a Venus talisman. So I'll be telling you about that soon. They'll be available on my website quite soon. So that's my big project in 2023. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening to talk to me, or have me give you a talk rather. And tonight, my lecture is called Enlightenment Through Your Rising Sign. I've been thinking this is a philosophical lecture. Okay, so that is to say, it's not so much looking at charts as talking about how astrology can be perceived and what I believe to be the moving forwards of astrology. So I'm just going to sort of start to talk to you about that, and we'll see where we go. I'm pretty sure you're going to get some pretty interesting takeaways tonight, as in you'll have something to go wow about. Plenty of things to go wow about, so that's a bit of a bonus, and and you'll be able to apply it to your chart as well, the thinking behind this. So the first image that you can see is one of my favorite images by a chap called Camille Flammarion, and it's basically the pilgrim at the edge of the known universe, and he's peeking through the edge of a sphere to see much beyond that sphere. He's actually seeing the mechanics and workings of the universe that are usually hidden from our eyes. You know, we don't usually see them, right? Because there he is, he's in his world. You can see he's got the starry scape, he's got the landscape and the trees and the plants and the flowers and the sun and the moon and the stars. But then there's something going on behind that. There's something more. And he's reaching out and he's in awe of it. He's like down on his knees. He's got his hand up into that space and he's going, wow, there's something else here. And that image is really quite famous. You've probably seen it around quite a lot. And it's been a massive inspiration to me. And it really, one of the original images that really got me thinking. And so there is, I thought, to make the great frontispiece to my talk tonight. Okay, so so let me take you to the next image. Now, for about the last 4 years, or 4 or so years, I've been really studying stuff, coming to conclusions, and I've written a book. And this is my new book. It's literally about to be published. I am actually self-publishing the first edition. So I'm about to print up a couple of hundred copies, but it'll also be available as print on demand on Amazon. This is my first astrology book proper. I wrote a novel about 7 years ago, but now this is an astrology book proper, and it's called The Divine Order. And if you read the tagline on the front cover there, it says, rediscover the lost secrets of the planets, because this is a book about planets, to restore your place in the universe, which is about discovering your true nature and your divine nature, and then releasing your creative genius. Once you've discovered your true nature, you can then work with it in a form of psychotherapy. So what I'm doing here, it's I've created a form of modern psychotherapy. I'm developing this from this book. I'm going to be moving towards publishing a workbook for workshops so that people can come along and walk the spheres and talk about them and have a whole workshop. It's going to be a very interesting experience. And this can lead to retreats and all sorts of things. It'll link up with all New Age holistic healing arts. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing the unification. I've found that what I would call the divine key to link everything together, which is kind of what astrology always did anyway. We all knew that. It's why we are adherents to it. Well, we love our astrology because we know there's something very, very deep and very meaningful about it all. It's very deeply resonant with the soul. And now I've found something that unifies it all together. So that's kind of what I'm aiming to do. So it is, in fact, an incredibly flexible system of creative manifestation. So and intention setting. So it's like you get all these really big New Age books like Artist's Way or The Secret, or there's loads of them. E equals MC squared is a good one. There's lots of these really famousy kind of New Age books, and they all talk about manifestation and intention setting. And that's all really well and good, but they don't use astrology. They don't talk about astrology as an actual technique to go about creative manifestation. Whereas we know when we're looking at our charts and when we're looking at our transits and we go, yeah, like I had an opportunity there, or something's happening, I could really make something happen here, and you become very aware or conscious rather of what's happening in your life according to timings. And none of those really big New Age books approach that. They don't really actually approach the idea of working within a framework of time. And so what I'm thinking, what I've created here is a very easy new method, or not new, because it's not new, nothing new in astrology. It's a rediscovered method or a re-realized method of how to work with time to bring about healing for oneself within a psychotherapeutic context. Because it's working with the mind and working with the contents of the mind. So it's very flexible, and it's transformative, and it fits with everything. So you can fit it to anything. Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. So this is actually probably more like what the back cover copy will say. The Divine Order is a space-time map for self-improvement and personal development. It's written with the non-specialist in mind. So I've written a book that anybody can read, okay? So you don't have to be an astrologer to read this. And I had a really interesting chat with a publisher, with one of the publishers who publish a lot of astrology books. And she said to me, it's really interesting, in the world of astrology, you get thousands of people who will want to, learn astrology or know about their charts, but they only go up to a certain point. They go up to what could be referred to as the line. They go up to the line, and then those who cross the line are those who become astrologers. They actually then learn all the maths and all the techniques and everything to become an astrologer. But there are many, many, many people who go right up to the line without crossing it. And that's mainly because they don't have the time in their lives. They've got other jobs to do, other things to do, families or what, they just don't have the space and time in order to be a proper astrologer. So I designed a book that fits with them, but perfectly. So it's for non-specialists, but a specialist astrologer will also be able to read this book and go and completely have a new system with which to work with. Okay, it's still charts, by the way, are staying exactly the same as they always have done. I'm not here to say anything about, oh, we're going to change the chart, I'm going to redraw it or anything like that. Charts are exactly the same as they are. Okay, so it's, but it's a system by which to understand the flow of consciousness. Okay, and I'm going to get into that in tonight's talk. All right, so so this book plots a chart through the fascinating history of the different perspectives on our place in the cosmos. Okay, so the key, possibly the most key word in my whole book is perspective. It's the idea of how do we perceive the world we are in. Okay, and so I'll get onto that in a minute. All right, but it includes the influences and rulership the ancients attributed to the visible planets and how these remain integral to life to this day. So I'm going to be doing quite a big reveal. It's a fairly, I mean, in the world of astrology, it's a quite commonly known thing. Okay, in fact, I mentioned it earlier. Like today is Wednesday, which is Mercury or Mercury Day. Tomorrow is Thursday, which is Jupiter Day. Friday is Vendredi or Venus Day. And then we get Saturn Day. And then we have Sunday. And then we will have Monday, Moon Day. And so the 7 days of the week are, in fact, the way what the ancients used to attribute to the visual planets. And my book completely does this, completely covers it beautifully. So I've really done it. I've worked so hard on this, and it's so good. And I blowing my up. Read my book, but it's, I think you're going to dig it. Okay, so basically, this book explains how to refocus ourselves to restore a humanocentric viewpoint. Okay, so it's a bit of a word I've coined there, humanocentric, because in the beginning there was geocentricity, and then we went to heliocentricity, and now I'm suggesting we go back to humanocentricity. So, which is like the idea of centering on humanity and what humanity's doing, and how we can make that into a healing art or a progress, something that moves us forward. So it's going to be using simple experiments, followed by activities such as letter writing and guided journeys, to start releasing our true creative genius, which is becoming more and more integrated, happier, and healthier in the process. So everything leads up to understanding how and working with the timing that we have within ourselves. And it's quite a simple system. So, but you'll see when you buy the book. I'm not going to go into everything today. I'm just giving you the sort of top bit. But you'll see that I go right into it in the book. So, so the Divine Order is a book for everybody, whatever your walk in life. The knowledge and methods it contains can fit in with what you do. It offers insights that reveal possible reasons for problems and also suggestions for how to deal with them. Okay, and this is the first book in a series. I'm completely getting a series of this together. I've got books 2 and 3 kind of in the pipeline already. I know what I want to put in them, and I'm going to be doing a workbook, as I said, which will be about doing workshops and retreats. Okay, so I've got a whole plan to expand on this, and I think I am pretty much the first person doing this in the world of astrology. So you can say you saw it here first, and I would like to suggest you buy my book to then practice it with your clients, and practice it on yourselves. Okay. So I'll move on to the next slide. So just a couple of the topics that I'm covering tonight, I hope, is the idea that number one there, we're getting ready for some Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto is about to move into Aquarius. That's 20 years. It's going to have a 20-year cycle of being in Aquarius. And I think that's a very huge thing. It's going to do something to the world of astrology, because Aquarius is a strongly influenced of all the signs in the zodiac. Aquarius does have quite strong astrological influence, so I think that's an important factor. So Pluto will be doing something to transforming potentially astrology, and so I'm producing and writing this book to kind of coincides with Pluto moving into Aquarius. Number 2 there is a shift of perception is all you need. Once I show you these experiments, And tonight, what I'm going to show you is something that you can judge for yourself. Okay, it's all about your experience and what you're experiencing from your center, from where you are and how you look out at the world. And that's what this is tonight. Okay, that's what I'm actually doing. So number 3 is the all-seeing eye experiment, what I would call the most mind-blowing, amazing, insightful experiment you can do with yourself. I've put the symbol there of the Eye of Providence, or the God's all-seeing eye. You see it everywhere. It's been a host of, everyone has conspiracy theories around it, but I'm actually going to show you tonight what it is. It's so simple, it's really amazing, and you'll probably actually laugh, I hope, because you'll just be like, oh my God, right? So when we do that, you're going to be like, that was really interesting. It was well worth watching this lecture just for that, you know? And then point number 4 is I'm going to show you the difference, how I believe to be the difference between primary emotion, which is awareness, and secondary emotion, which is consciousness. And of course, primary and secondary emotion are big movements in astrology. They are about to do with the timing of the chart, the timing of birth, the timing of the first breath, and the movement of our planet is all linked to our awareness and our consciousness. And I see them as they are completely unified. As you'll see later on, I'll show you they're completely unified, one thing, but you can see the difference between them. And when you do that, then you have a set of, well, I'll explain, you'll see. And finally, point 5 is I've called this enlightenment through your rising sign, because it's quite interesting when you think about it. We have a thing in astrology called the rising sign. It's where the earth meets, where the heavens meet the earth. It's the point of birth. It's what was going on in the eastern horizon at the time of birth, what constellation it was pointing at. So therefore, it's something in the primary, well, I'll talk about it again later, but just to say now, rising sign. And in Buddhism, in astrology, we have the rising sign, something's rising. In Buddhism, one of the key things of Buddhism is recognizing thoughts arising. Okay, so the idea that something's arising. Okay, and then in Christianity, the big religion of the West, you know, we have Christ is risen. Yeah, rising into divine nature. Okay, and that's why I put the little other picture there of the chap with the halo. Okay, so what you've got there is the idea of the halo. What is the halo? You know, and I'm going to show you that tonight as well. Okay, so I hope get ready for the really interesting little ride here. It was taking you down a philosophical journey of astrological, and we'll see where we go from here. Okay, so let's have a think about getting ready for Pluto in Aquarius. So what do you think might happen, or what are we going to look for in the world of astrology? Okay, presuming that Aquarius, you know, back in the 60s, the age of Aquarius, and there was a huge movement of everybody wanting to study astrology. You know, it's a very Aquarian thing, and you know, what are we going to look for in the world of astrology? You know, what do you think might be themes that we're going to be thinking about and exploring to develop our art, to develop the way we're moving forwards as a collective of astrologers and astrology enthusiasts? So here, as you can see, I put the water bearer's jar in the background there of the image, and we're looking at this idea of what Aquarius is, which is actually it's the water bearer. So it's the water of emotions, okay, like a water element. The water is being poured like an emotional context, flowing through the rationality and thought processes of air. It's the action of the emotional water being poured through air. So what happens then is one can maybe start to see the world beyond the veil of the physical world, because of course water is emotion. We don't, you know, it's all to do with feelings as an element. But when air comes, when it's interacted with air in an Aquarian way, and of course Aquarius, I mean, it's like, it's almost, it just says air water, doesn't it? I mean, water, RI is like AIR, you know, it's like a watery air. So we're looking at this idea that the cosmic energy of water is actualized into specific patterns of thought. Okay, so it's like it's really good time to start analyzing actual thinking patterns, actual flow of consciousness, like a watery flow of consciousness. Okay, so in a way, it's the gaining objectivity, it's that keyword perspective. and it's a reflective approach. A reflection, like a mirror, like a surface of water. Oh, I'm looking at this water and I can see, there's something complete or whole about it. It's a reflection on what is. Okay, it's like ripples of water. Yeah. So with air sign Aquarius, of course, anything to do with air signs is to do with the breath, because of course breath is air. So it's the breath of life. It's the prana in the Hindu system of yoga. But the ancient Greeks and the Greek philosophers and those ancient city-states of Greeks had a very perfected life. And they took it all from the Egyptians. And they had a word called pneuma, which I put there. You can see pneuma. And pneuma is the spirit of the air. And I'll talk a little bit about that later as well. And I've got a whole other book in that coming up in the making. So the pneuma is this idea of what the spirit of air is. And it's a word that's been largely lost, in our modern, we had to go to India and we had to get the spirituality. It got imported from the East back into the West. But actually the West, if you like the way, the idea of the Mediterranean or that, the ancient Greek culture, they had everything. I mean, they actually had it completely sussed. And it's just about digging that out, which is actually a lot what Hellenistic astrology is all about. That movement is going to grow exponentially, I believe, with Pluto and Aquarius, because people are going to really start studying as an air form of communications, what those ancient Greek words mean. There's so much more to say about that and move into that realm. So, and all that is linked to astrology, of course, because language is, thought forms, it's all linked together. So, on the right-hand side of the slide there, I put some classic Aquarian keywords. So when Pluto moves in to Aquarius, we're going to dig up a lot about, what can be, transformed and changed. So there will be unconventional things, there will be innovative things, there will be unique and unusual things, likely to be inventive, likely to be original, intellectual, scientific, humanitarian, freedom-loving, being attuned to the universal will, and I put there in brackets the divine order, because the universal will is in fact the order of the divine, or the divine order. Something that's revolutionary, and once again, a change in perception. Okay. So these are all kind of Aquarian themes, all right? So I've just put a few questions here just to it's kind of getting a bit ready maybe for what I'm going to hopefully show you, and so see if you can accept what I'm going to say, So I've put here questions to answer before entering the rabbit hole. Do you really want to be enlightened? Is that something that, people, sometimes people, I'm, not really bothered about this or that, Do you want to go beyond the natal chart at the same time as understanding the natal chart with a slightly different perspective? Are you happy with your habitual patterns of your life? Some people like what they do, Would I like to use my planets and my astrology to take a further step towards liberation? Am I prepared to accept that there's something akin to the elephant in the room with regards to the current mainstream astrology's perception of the world? And are the different viewpoints of astrology, modern or traditional, a good thing? Or is it time to consider and integrate a form of a union? Okay, so just some thoughts there, and then we'll carry on. Keep on launching into this. So now I come to the quote that I kind of needed from like one of the more highly respected astrologers, I think, or something like that. I found a Robert Zoller quote. But again, this came up about 4 years ago, and something just pinged. It just jumped out the page, and I thought, that's what I'm looking for. So he said in his book published in 2003, and you can see the reference to it there. The complete study of astrology, therefore, consists of not merely digging up the writings of the ancients and assiduously studying them, but penetrating their inner meaning and rediscovering their perceptual mode. I'll just say that again, rediscovering their perceptual mode. We must ultimately see the world as the ancients did if we are to understand their metaphysics. Okay. So what is to perceive as a verb? Okay, it is to become aware of or to gain knowledge of, or it's to come to know something by direct experience. I'm choosing to do all this now. It's just perfect timing, actually, as astrology often does provide perfect timing. But Jupiter is in Aries, and Jupiter is a good way of describing the effect of Jupiter is to say direct experience. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it's a new beginning or a new start, and Jupiter's going to show expansions in that area. So it's almost like saying here's a new sort of philosophy to put out to the world a bit, or at least to start talking about, And so the Latin percipere is to grasp with the mind or to comprehend. So we're looking at how can we rediscover something that we can grasp with the mind to comprehend, that we know by direct experience, i.e. what can happen to our own way of understanding things. It kind of brings it back to the self again. Okay, so I then say in astrological history there was a huge shift in perceptual mode that happened several centuries ago that changed everything. Okay. And what happened? Well, I've titled this slide with recognizing how we astrologers need to perceive things differently. So point number one here is we have to face the fact that astrology was basically blasted to smithereens in the 18th and 19th centuries. Okay, it was literally completely shot through. Okay, and what had been the only way of understanding the world for thousands of years. Okay, so we're looking here at the idea of the Vatican's belief system. The main religions of the world said Earth is at the center, right? Everything's going around it, right? And that was the belief, and it was pain of death if you tried to say anything else. That's how serious it was. Okay. So, but then suddenly, around about time of Copernicus, 1572, he published his heliocentric theory, where he said, well, actually, we're going around the sun. And then Galileo invented telescopes to prove that. At first, of course, the Vatican wasn't having it. That it was like it took a while for that to settle in, that new belief system. Now, I'm definitely, by the way, not here to say that science doesn't work or anything like that, because that's completely the wrong way of doing this. I'm here to say, just think of it slightly different. Okay, science is absolutely spot on, and I'm not here to sort of be some sort of like far-flung voice of revolutionary go, oh, don't do it like that, completely different thing, right? So just keep sort of tuning into this, right? Once Isaac Newton published Principia in 1689, astrology was rapidly denigrated, okay, as the new scientific materialism took over and then dominated, all right? And then we had a phase of about 200 years. In the UK, it was almost illegal to be an astrologer. They even had laws against it, okay? And the whole sacred art was reduced to what they called fortune teller status, yeah? And it was just like a thing that it just lost any kind of standing or any kind of sort of structure or respect or anything, okay? It was almost a word that you couldn't even say, okay? And this was until then in 1877, Helena Blavatsky founded the Theosophy Society, where she started talking about the mysteries, and Alan Leo then started publishing astrology from 1895 onwards. Now, Alan Leo, these are people who were brought up, who lived their lives in that 200 years of scientific materialism where there was nothing else. So everything was like this brand new mystery to them. They didn't have a clue about what it was before. Well, they might, of course they did, they had, but they were like, this is the way the world is at the moment. This is how everybody sees the world. So Alan Leo invented the word sun signs, because after 200 years, as astrology began to rebuild itself, what it was actually doing was rebuilding its new foundations on the scientific rational materialism. Okay, so yeah, the sun is at the center. Yeah, everything's going around the sun. From our perception, we're being taught that everything's going around the sun. But what's my consciousness doing? Okay, anyway, I'll carry on. The very thing that had crushed it was the fact that they were building this new form of astrology on top of the scientific rational materialism. So it was natural that astrology took on the heliocentric perspective of the world. Okay, it was natural that astrology took that on. Okay, and we've developed that constantly since then. Okay. But I believe there's something else here that I'm going to start bringing forward to talk to you about, right? So I say here, a shift of perception is all you need. It's a very simple thing, okay? I'm not testing anybody. I'm not trying to test you. I'm just going to show you something. And then you can tell me, you know, you can hopefully write to me, you know, call me up, just chat to me about what you're experiencing, because I'm really interested to know, okay? I know from my personal experience and from other people I've shown, what I'm going to show you now is incredibly interesting, okay? So could we generally agree that we mostly practice astrology in the third person perspective and heliocentrically? Okay, so the chart is an object that is outside of us. You know, we are very objective. Okay, so we look at the world objectively. All right, and that's how astrology is as well. Right, we know it's something going on inside us. We know that there's something going on when we talk about planets and things, but what is it? Okay, so astrology can actually become a word salad of interpretations, right? And that's of course brilliant, you know, but it's about how you use interpretations, you know. But are we really connecting to the source, or to creation, or to our true nature, or to the divine nature, and therefore the divine order? So what I'm proposing with this talk is, and in my book, is that we've overlooked something that is in fact very deeply spiritually unifying and satisfying. Okay, because when you realize what I'm about to show you, it does bring about a very good sense of happiness. Okay, and that it's time to rediscover that, and to therefore create a love from that, because that's what humanity, we all seek in life. And what I'm about to show you can be integrated, explored, enjoyed. It can be transforming in a very positive way the future of astrology. And it's going to be making it a light-based understanding that can bring flashes of enlightenment. Okay, so this is the premise. All right. So at this point, and now I'm going to have to show you the next slide, which is to remind you how the ancients saw the world. Okay, so there you have the original geocentric view of the universe, where Earth is still an unmoving at the center. Earth doesn't move. And surrounding the Earth are the 7 wandering planets, each of which is a crystalline concentric interlocking sphere. So they're concentric stacking spheres like Matryoshka dolls. They stack out, but they're all perfectly aligned, and they are all scintillating in their light forms around the Earth, which is still an unmoving at the center. And this was the way that the world was seen. Okay, now why was the world seen in that way? The question is, why did the Greek philosophers see the world like that? In fact, before the Greek philosophers, why did the Egyptians see the world like that? Right? Because as you can see there's the zodiac of Dendera. And you've got Egyptians here, and they're all surrounding what appears to be a big sphere. It's a sphere, right? A bit like maybe a interlocking crystalline set of spheres. And they're supporting it. They're holding it up. It's like a big round or a big sphere in which is contained everything. Everything is inside that sphere. That is the night sky, but also there's all these things around the edges. There's a whole world right there. The whole world is inside a sphere, and they are uplifting it or upholding it or framing it with their hands. Okay, so they're kind of framing something with their hands. They're saying there's something there, like it's got an edge, it's got a round edge to it, and it's spherical, and they're supporting something. And if you look up at the in the world, you know, you're in a space, okay, and you look up into your space. Here is this round, and the Egyptians were doing that, okay, in 3000 BC. Now I'm going to bring you fast forward to Aristotle and Plato, or Plato then Aristotle. Aristotle had this image is the Aristotelian cosmology, and it was Aristotle who created this, and this is the original diagram of the concentric spheres, and it's looking out from a geocentric perspective. Okay, so in the middle of the diagram, and I don't know if you can see the pointer or not on my screen, but you can see there in the middle there are the 4 elements which make up everything. Of course, science has given us the periodic table of elements these days, which is a further subdivision of everything that is matter, that is earth and water at the very center there. You can see a little island with a house and some trees, and there's a lake and a pond and a stream and some sea, and that's all in the middle there. And then the outer rim of that one, you can see what appears to be like curling, a bit like clouds, moving clouds. And then the rarefied form of air was fire. So as the air moved, it turned into fire. And of course, air feeds fire science anyway. You know, fire needs air. So those are your 4 elements, and I think you can see those there. And then there's the edge, of which we have the first sphere, which is the sphere of the moon, Luna. So we exist inside the sublunar sphere. We are inside the earthly realm of the 4 elements. We are corporeally created out of 4 elements. Everything in our world has a 4 element, has the energy structure is according to Greek philosophers 4 elements. According to today's science, 100 plus elements. But you get the idea of what I'm saying there. It's a matter and corporeal world. And it's the world of impermanence. It's the world of change. Nothing stays the same in this world. That's why we have the seasons. It's why we have things are born, they grow, and then they die. And that is the process that we go through. And the moon is the governess of that. She is the surrounding first sphere. So we look up to the moon, and she encases us in the sphere of change. So the moon herself is always contingent. She is always changing. Her phases ever changing. No 2 phases are the same. So it's a constant process every 28 days. She grows in light, becomes full, and then wanes in light, back to no moon, to then do the cycle again. So the moon says everything's changing. As you look up at the moon, you understand that everything is changing. But beyond the moon, the other spheres are all perfect. They don't change. They have a perfect order, a perfect system. And it is the other planets that are sending down their rays through the moon. So just another little add there is that the moon triggers many things in this world, and it's key to, you know, life basically. And then you've got these 3 other spheres. Beyond that, you have the firmament, which is the stars or the constellations of the zodiac, as you can see the zodiac signs there with their starry patterns. Then we have the crystalline sky, and then we have primum mobile, which is where God lives, if you like, the divine creation lives. And then the final sphere there, in primum mobile, is the Latin words, very loosely translated around the edge, are the Empyrean, the sky of the Empyrean is the house of God and all of the elect. So that is where the divine creator exists. Be you want to call that God or goddess, it's the divine creation, exists out past there. So, and I'm going to show you tonight how to rediscover that divine creation within yourself. We say in astrology, we have as above and so below, and the so below is the as above. And we also say, as without is within, and as within is so without. And these phrases indicate that there's a very deep reflective process. The planets do not control us. Okay, we all know that, right? They just act as reflectors. They just happen to be this incredible way, because here's the thing. The planets are actually in us. They're inside of us, or inside of our consciousness. And kind of that's what I'm going to show you. So I want you to imagine yourself being at the center of this diagram, okay? In that corporeal 4-element combination, of which we are a combination. As you know, we look at our charts and we have 4 elements, okay? So fire, earth, air, and water. We have combinations of those that make up our personalities and characters. So imagine yourself being a corporeal matter 4-element being, and you're looking out into your world, okay, as your world revolves and rotates around you, okay? It's almost as if it's the wheeling movements of the mind, okay? And that God gave us the eyes to see the wheeling movements of the mind. And I got that from C.S. Lewis. Very deep kind of thinking there. But God gave us eyes so that we can see the wheeling movements of the mind. Where we are now, in and under this sublunar sphere, we are on a turning Earth. The Earth rotates. We know that, right? It rotates once in 24 hours, and it's underneath the moon. So we're going around and around like this in 24 hours, right? And everything's stacked up all around us, all these beautiful spheres of light all around us, and we're going around like this. And when we look at a chart, we have the 4 angles of the chart: the ascendant, descendant, the midheaven, and the IC. They are 2 sets. They're like coordinate points that show us the directions that we're looking in. The horizon, okay, which is of course how we look out to the east and look to the west, and then look to the top, the culmination, the highest point in the sky, the midheaven, middle of the heavens, and then the nadir, the underneath. And those 4 angles are constantly moving in 24 hours because they show the movement of this planet that you and I are standing on right now. We're attached to this planet. We are standing with our feet on the ground. So we are on this planet, and therefore we are the primary motion. Okay, we are in primary motion. Okay, so as our world turns, everything's rising in the heavens up above us and then going down the other side. In fact, you know, you could be like a Tibetan Lama, you could sit on a cushion all day and not move an inch, but the world would have completely turned in that time, and the heavens would have completely revolved around you. Or you can choose to walk around and have a life and do whatever you want to do. The fact is that you don't have to technically move to experience the world revolving. Okay, and that's primary motion, right? When we're born, our primary motion is sealed into the chart as a particular moment of space and time that we became corporeal matter. Okay, the soul descends through the spheres, our first breath, the pneuma, we take the spirit of life, or in Latin, the Romans called it animus, which is where the word animation comes from, the idea of life, the idea of like springing into life and something happening. So, some thoughts for you to consider, right? Now, to take this to the next step and to begin to explain to you how to change your perception, we're going to be keeping with this image for a bit longer. So this is where I want you to start to recognize how this is in fact a map for a flash of enlightenment. Okay, I'm not promising anything here. I'm not going to say you will be enlightened. I'm not going to say, you know, but I do hope that if you follow what I'm going to suggest to do now, I'm going to show you a series of experiments. If you follow what I do with this map in mind, I would like to think you're going to get a flash of enlightenment, okay? the mind is such a busy thing, right, that you're probably going to go straight back into that flow of consciousness that we all live in most of the time. All right. But I would like to say that this shift of perception that I'm about to show you, I'm going to show you how to go from the third person, which is what we were taught and brought up to do. Our whole structure of the world pretty much goes third person. We're objective. We look outside of ourselves for everything. But I'm going to show you to go first person. Okay. So I'm going to show, and that's the change of perception, right? Because actually, that is how you see the world. When you were born and you took your first breath, you were in first person state, okay? Because no one had told you to be objective yet. You didn't get to do that for quite a few years, in fact. So the first few years of life are, in fact, completely first person, all right? And you'll see that when I explain that a bit more. And enlightenment can be gained from going back or realizing or recognizing the first person state, and then going, I can choose to be in that if I want. You can flip from perception mode to perception mode. So you could, and it's natural, by the way, completely natural to be in third person most of the time, right? But if you want to go, because that's where the ego is. The ego is inside third person, right? The ego identity. I have a purpose. I have an identity. I am Julian. I'm an astrologer. I'm giving you a talk. All these things make up my ego. But if I go first person, then things slightly shift, and I can just change my perception to enjoy that. And it is a satisfying and enjoying state of being to be in. But then I go back to third person straight away. The phone rings, or go and have a cup of tea, or whatever, take the dog for a walk or something. Third person, right? But I can go straight back. I can flip between the perceptual modes, and I'm going to show you how to do that because it's really quite cool. So, but in order to do this, I need you to follow me with this experiment, okay? So the first experiment is I want you to put a pointing finger with your, like a finger, with your hand, take a pointing finger, and I want you to start to look around the room that you are in, and I want you to, the key to this experiment is to see where your attention goes, okay? Because where attention goes, consciousness grows. Now, this is key to planetary archetypes, okay? This is really key to understanding archetypes, all right? And why different planets rule different things, and why we key into different things in different ways, all right? So you have to, so this is a really cool, it's whatever, you judge for yourself, right? But you must do this with me to understand what I'm talking about, right? So, because it's a flow, this is a motion flowing thing to help you get a really interesting viewpoint, okay? And it will really do something really interesting. Okay, so with a pointing finger, so I want you to give yourself a pointing finger with your hand, and in the room that you are in now, I want you, and you don't have to say it or talk about it or whatever, just in your own mind, to point at something in the room and remind yourself and tell yourself what you give it as a name. Yeah, it's a name, it's an object, it's a color, it has a form, right? And I always want you, in your head, do that a few times. So, for example, you can't see it because I'm pointing beyond the camera, but I'm pointing to a chair that has, it's a chair shape. It has a dark blue fabric on it. That's good. On the chair is a cushion, which is a dark red, and it's a square form, but I call it cushion, and it has a form to it, a shape and a form and a color, and okay, and that's what I've always called it that. You see, so it's like my consciousness recalls it as being, oh, there's a cushion. Then I point to a book. Yeah, I can see, oh, lots of books actually. There's some books there. Each one's actually got a title, and each title immediately makes me think, according to the speed of my mind, what's in that book. Yeah, so consciously I am registering that I can see all these books, and they all have different meanings. Okay, and they all have book shapes, and they're on bookshelves. Okay. Then I'm going to point at, a phone, right? Oh yeah, rectangular in shape. It's a telephone. I use that to call and make calls. Okay. Then I'm going to point at, I don't know, homeopathic remedies, cell salts. Oh yeah, That's a bottle. I recognize the color. I recognize the label. That's what, that's what it is. That's what I expect it to be. So when I think of I'll take that bottle, I think, oh, time to take some cell salts. I'll pick that up and I'll do that. My consciousness responding in a way where I put my attention. When I see them there, I'm always thinking about it. Okay, so this is quite key to what I'm about to show you. Okay, so I hope you're doing this around in your room right now. When you've done that 2 or 3 times and you're just getting familiar with how you recall things into your attention and how you activate your consciousness and how sometimes consciousness, well, we'll go into that a bit later, but now I want you to, with the pointing finger, I want you to point at your foot, okay, and say, there's my foot. Right now I can see my foot, and I've got a pair of slippers on. I've got slippers. Okay, there they are. Yeah, I recognize them. And then I want you to point at your knee, and describe that to yourself. Oh yeah, I've got there's my knee, and I've got covered in fabric, and it's a knee shape, And then I want you to point to the middle of your torso. Oh yes, there's my torso. I recognize I've got a sort of printed sweatshirt thing on, and now, should I say, I want you to bring your pointing finger, the thing that you've been using to point out all these different things which you have given yourself descriptions of, recognize the shape and form of them. So you've been exercising your mind to do this. And now I want you to be bringing your finger from your foot to your knee, to your torso. And now I want you to point at your own face and look at your finger pointing at your face and hold it there. Okay. And with your eyes open, look at your finger. Okay. And just relax and looking at your finger. What were you doing before? You were pointing out at things and you were giving yourself them names and descriptions and how it comes up in your mind. Okay. But now, what are you pointing at? Now, you would say, well, I'm pointing at my face. But the thing is can you actually see your own face? And I'm not talking about on the Zoom screen, by the way, folks. Can you actually see your own face at the moment? And have you actually, without the use of a mirror, have you actually ever seen your own face? Well, you might say, have a little think about that. You actually probably haven't, right? Now, how would I describe what I'm looking out of? Because here I am, I'm sitting here, and I'm looking out at the world, right? I am looking at my world. Yeah, I'm sat in my room, I'm talking to you on Zoom, and I'm looking at my world. But how would I describe what I'm looking out of? Because I was describing all sorts of things before. I was describing telephones, chairs, cushions, books. Yeah, right? But now I'm like, how would I describe what I'm looking out of? Well, I'm not sure. I'm looking out at everything. I'm looking at the whole world. Because so how would I describe it? Well, the space I'm looking out of is everything. Because I'm actually looking at the whole world. I could actually describe it as I'm looking at the whole world. I'm looking at the space that I am in. So I'm pointing back at this space that I'm looking out of. So just sit with that for a second or two, just to let your mind relax into that idea that you're pointing at the space that you're looking out of. But I am looking out, yeah, but I'm also pointing in. So I'm actually doing 2 things at once. I've actually got another finger and I'm pointing out, because there I am looking out into the world. I can see everything in my room, exactly as I've done already, pointing out. I was looking at all those things, giving them names and objects and forms. But I'm actually also pointing in, yeah, at the same time. So I'm actually doing this. Can you see what I'm doing there? I've got 2 fingers pointing. One points one way and one points the other way. I'll point back at my face again. And this means, right, that if I was to now turn to look out the window, there has to be a window here. I turn to look out the window like this. So I'm now looking out at the window. And I can imagine there, out there, I can see the stars and I can see the planets, right? Yeah. And I'm looking out at the stars and the planets, right? And because when I do this, I have capacity for the whole world, because I'm looking in the space that I'm looking out of contains the whole world. So therefore, the whole world is in me. The whole world is in you. The whole world is inside of us. But I'm looking out at that world, as whilst recognizing that that it's contained within me. And in order to do that, I can then look at the night sky and say, there are planets and stars up there. They're in me too. The planets and stars are in my conscious, I have this awareness that the whole world is in me. Okay, there's this huge space, and it moves with me, right? It moves wherever I move, and I'm in that space. So I just want to sit with that for a minute, and now I want to move. We're going to move towards the next experiment. Okay, so we're now going to move to this idea of hopefully having seen that you actually have huge capacity, that the whole world is in you whilst you're experiencing it. There's no dividing line between in and out, right? There is no dividing line, but there is the dividing line is between awareness and consciousness. Okay, so I am aware that the whole world is in me. I have an awareness of that. That is the primary motion. Okay, there's an awareness that I'm completely alive, totally breathing, totally, completely connected to the world because I'm in it. It's contained within me, but I'm also part of looking out at it as well. So I'm in and out at the same time. There's a unification between the two things. But now I want you to do the next thing, which is to actually close your eyes. Okay, because you've had this really quite amazing space. You've been in this amazing space of realizing that this whole space is you. It's within you. You have full capacity to take the whole world inside your space. And now I want you to close your eyes. So please do that. And of course, well, where am I now? When my eyes are closed, well, that space that I just was pointing at, that infinite capacity for everything, is it still there? Well, yes, actually it is. It really is. I mean, I'm actually in that infinite space right now with my eyes closed. And in fact, my voice speaking, even though it's my voice speaking, it's landing in that space. It's a vast, infinite space. And even at nighttime, when I close my eyes to dream, I dream in that space, which is a bit like being awake anyway. So that, you know, there's actual similarity. And so, but I'm in this wonderful space. It's very peaceful. It's very calming. And my imagination, my ability to feel, to create sensory fields that can become imagery is very fluid here, because my consciousness, with my eyes open, my consciousness is fully activated and everything gets very busy. Okay, because my mind is immediately flowing and immediately filling up with stuff like all the things I was pointing to, you know, cushions, books, etc., phone, etc. And yet when my eyes closed, I actually have far more space to roam around in. It's actually an infinite space of mind. It's my awareness. I'm very aware of it, and it's a beautiful space to be in. And inside here, there is no measurement. Okay, there's no time, there's no measurement. I can't measure the distance from left to right. I can't measure forwards to backwards. I can't measure up to down, upwards or downwards. I'm just in my space. And I'm aware of it. I'm very, very aware that I'm in that space. Now, and it's been an interesting little moment or two to be in here and to maybe hopefully take your consciousness to a new level of what this is. But now I'm going to do a little countdown and I'm going to open my eyes again. And I want you to do that at the same time. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1 and open my eyes. And oh my God, all that stuff came flooding back like a great flood. Yeah? Like a huge moment of like, oh, all the embellishments, all those colors and all that stuff and form and shape and measurement all came flooding back straight away. Wow. Yeah, it's like, oh, that's like a big bang. Yeah, like the Big Bang. What was the Big Bang? Oh, there was nothingness. And then there was everything. And it happened instantaneously. A Big Bang. Yeah, I just had one. Did you? But also I had creation myths, right? You go to all the ancient cultures of the world, you talk about their creation myths. and their creator gods. And they all went, there was nothing. And then there was something. There was nothing. Nice and relaxed with my eyes closed. And then there's, everything. It's really busy. Whoa, blimey. That's a whole world right there. And I was just like, whoa, amazing, right? So that is like, another key to understanding the difference between awareness and consciousness. So my consciousness is now fully activated again. Yeah, I was in a state of that pure awareness because my sensory field became full of pure potential, right? The pure potential of being in that space meant anything could happen in there, that I could conjure up and create anything in my imagery, particularly based on what could be heard or what could be seen. That's why people put headphones on and listen to music, because they love it, because it helps conjure up beautiful imagery. So it's all things like that. So, but the point being is consciousness is immediately activated again when you come back into this space. Now, the next part of this is to say, so what are the things, how am I looking at this space that is in me? Well, we're all taught, and it's obvious, that we look at the world through our two eyes, a pair of apertures set into our face. And that's actually what I want you to do next. I want you to bring your apertures up like this and create a pair of binoculars, like you're looking through a pair of binoculars. And yeah, I've got like my binoculars on, looking at the world like I usually do. And then I want you to, I want you to then create a space like this, like a diver's mask. So you're just going to separate the fingers and the thumbs like that to create a space like a diver's mask. Oh, I've gone into the underwater world. Well, it's another world. But and then I'm bringing this, open this up a bit. I've got my hands very close to the sides of my face here. So you're starting to look at your periphery vision, okay? So the edge, you're looking at the edge, right? So you're moving your hands away, as you can see here. You're starting to move them away a bit. And you can see your fingers. You wave your fingers at yourself. Hello, fingers. Yes, I can see you there, right? Just to bring it out a bit further, right? So that you're kind of comfortable. You just need to be comfortable with the shoulders there, and just got enough space so you can see your hands. And then I want you to, there they are. I can see them on the edges of my vision. And then I want you to bring them back and bring them back behind your head a bit like this until they vanish. Well, I can't see them now. Whoa, where are they gone? I can't see them, but I know that they're there. I am aware that my hands are there. Then I bring them around and then I wave them, bring them back again, try to the edges and wave them again. So there they are. There are my hands at the edge. And I want you to start to realize that there's a little bit of an edge. That edge is actually got a shape to it. So I want you to bring the edge, bring the shape, define that shape. What is it? Does it go up and it meets at the top like that? I can see my hands at the top there peeping out. I bring them round, down and round like this, and down here and up to, in fact, it actually vanishes about here. But I'm actually got this sphere. I've got a sphere of an edge, and that edge is a very interesting kind of hatchwork edge to it, because you can't actually look at it because the world moves, your space that moves with you, but it's there. There's like a slight hatched edge, around the edge of it, and it's a sphere. You're inside a sphere, right? So now when Plato in the Timaeus, the great Greek philosopher Plato in the Timaeus, talked about the sphere being a perfect object, that God created the sphere as the perfect object, what do you think he was thinking about? What kind of spheres do you think he was perceiving? Yes, he could look at the sun as a sphere, circle. He could look at the moon as a circle. He could look at ripples on the water as a circle. He could look at a spider's web. He could cut down a tree and look at tree rings. He can draw circles in the sand. But then can he become aware of his own state of awareness and consciousness as a sphere around his own being? Right? So Plato talks about this sphere. It's perfect because it's perfect, right? You are perfect in your sphere. And you can find the edges of it, right? And that led, Plato taught Aristotle, and Aristotle said, well, I'll create this cosmology. I'll create that. There's my sphere, and that's the image you're looking at on the screen. That's the Aristotelian cosmology. Now, when you go into churches or any religious iconography, you see all these halos. Yeah. And it's like, oh, there's a halo. What are all these people with halos? What's he doing? Oh, right. Oh, right. Yeah. And here's the most beautiful thing, which is really quite amazing, is when you do this sphere, you can actually say to yourself, have I really been looking at the world through two eyes, or have I, in fact, been looking at the world through a single eye my whole life? A single unified, frameless window. A window that I'm looking at the world through. It's like a single eye, right? It's the all-seeing eye, yeah? Because it sees everything, and everything is in it. Remember this? Everything is in it, and it's all-seeing, and it's unifying. So it's also actually eyes 1, 2, and the third eye, right? So I'm actually looking at through my third eye all the time, right? Oh yeah, of course, right? But maybe not, you know. I'm going off tangent if I start talking about that now, but it's enough to let you know that's a really good one to consider for a while. And so you've got this edge, okay? What's coming in and what's going out through the edge. Now, this is the best part of the experiment of all, okay? The single eye was the all-seeing eye experiment. So that explains, that answers all the conspiracy theories. Anybody can do it, right? So the conspiracy theories can get blasted to pieces overnight, right? If this becomes a big enough movement. Because why? You know, why is it a hidden thing when everybody can do it? Anybody could do what I just showed you. Anybody is welcome to do it, right? Just do it. Why not? Right? It's a very Pluto and Aquarius thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful Pluto and Aquarius thing. Okay, amazing. And it's this beautiful sphere that you're in. Okay, that actually contains your whole world. The most wonderful test of all of this is, well, it works anywhere you are, right? So try walking around and seeing your world flowing through you, right? Because actually your awareness doesn't move at all, and the world flows through you. So, and the best example of that, or one of the best ones, is on transport. So say you're driving a car, yeah, I'm sat behind the wheel of my car, and I love doing this. It's beautiful, so enlightening. I sit in the wheel of my car and I'm driving along. And literally, am I going anywhere? Well, I'm sat down. I'm not actually moving. My awareness is not moving, but the world is flowing through me. And by the way, when you do this, you become super alert. It's a beautiful thing for like, it's actually really amazingly kind of wonderful experience. But the world actually flows through you, right? So that is, wait for it, a transit, right? Because transits are passing through us. It's a passing transient. So when we're moving, you're actually sat there in a car, on a bus, in a taxi, on a bicycle, right? You can be, yeah, your awareness isn't going anywhere, but everything's flowing through you. Okay, now keep in mind that Aristotelian cosmology that I showed you. Okay, keep in mind how I told you about the essence of archetypes is how we give things names. Okay, and you're starting to see how transits work. Amazing, right? I mean, completely amazing. I hope you're with me on this. I hope you're not like, he's nuts. but the world actually flows through you, right? And your awareness stays exactly as it is. So So, and that's the difference between awareness and consciousness. And that ties into primary motion and secondary motion. Because primary motion, as I said before, is the four angles that are constantly moving. That's our planet, Earth, under the moon's sphere, rotating. Yeah, once in 24 hours. So we have night and day, light and dark, like this. Okay. And that's the ascendant, descendant, MC, and IC, the four angles. And the primary motion is pointing from our inner space. The chart, where the crossing point of the ascendant, descendant, MCIC, the very center of the chart, is the center of being. It's the center of being. That's where my awareness resides. I'm looking out from my awareness. Again, like the Aristotelian cosmology there, those four elements at the center, yeah, looking out into the world around me. And everything's moving through it, right? So transits. So yeah, the chart is my first breath. The natal chart is my first breath. But transiting charts are just happening all the time. That's the essence of horary, or the essence of anything, right? A transiting chart's an ongoing thing all the time. It's moving all the time. The Earth is still turning. I've got my natal chart. Fantastic, fantastic on natal chart, brilliant. But the Earth's turning right now. Yeah, things are happening right now. Yeah, and that's the primary motion. It's the fact that the Earth is turning. The ascendant, descendant, MCIC are constantly moving. People are being born all the time. Everyone's getting a chart as they're born, but the Earth keeps on turning. And then the secondary motion is the planets that are going in the other direction up in the constellations. So they're going opposite, counterclockwise to the primary motion. So it's the wheeling movements of the mind. So when you're in your space, when you're in your primary motion, which is this, because your feet are on the ground, because you're inside, because you're under the moon's sphere and you're on the earthly realm, you have feet on the ground, and therefore you are experiencing primary motion as you walk, or as exactly as I said, the world is flowing through you. And secondary motion is the idea that the planets are going counterclockwise to that, and that's transits. Yeah, that's the things that you come across as you're driving along or as you're walking down the market. I'll go for a walk. I'll walk from my house. I'll walk down the hill. I'll go to the market. Everything's flowing through me. Yeah, I'll meet people. I'm meeting the world. I'm meeting things all the time. It's all in my world because I have capacity for all things. And I'm meeting all these wonderful people, and I feel good because of it. Meanwhile, I'm keeping an eye on my transits because it's quite amazing to say, oh, I've got a Mercury transit coming up, and oh, what do I see? Something happens, Mercury retrograde or whatever, something comes into my sphere, something comes into my space and creates a transitory moment of experience. Okay. And I'm like, wow, yeah. But now, because we've always been doing that third person, because we've been doing it for 300, 400 years, third person, objectively, we go, yeah, astrology is like this very amazing mystery. Yeah, I don't know why it happens like it does, but it just does, But now you can start to see this change of perception. I do believe, I hope to think that people will understand me when I say this is taking it one step further. Okay. It's kind of enlightening. We're on the way towards total liberation, actually, but we need this, which is why I've called this from geocentricity to heliocentricity to humanocentric, because humanity-centric. Yeah, we need to do this because this is what's aligning us back with nature. Okay, we have to come back to our nature, right? And this is the natural way, and it's also the divine creation way because you align to the Creator. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Dante and the Divine Comedy. Okay, so Dante's Divine Comedy, he starts off in Inferno, goes to Purgatory. So book 1 is the Inferno, book 2 is Purgatory, and book 3 is Paradise. And if you ever wanted an amazing, very deep, it's a challenge to read it, to really get into it and go through it. But Paradise is an amazing book that actually is Dante moving through the very spheres in that diagram that you're looking at. It's him moving through the cosmology, the seven spheres, and then he unifies with God at the end. So Beatrice, his love, takes him up through the spheres. Then they go to the firmament, then they go to the crystalline heaven, and they end up in the primum mobile. And that's where they become unified with God. The point being is that where we are, what I'm trying to show you today, what I've been showing you, is the gateway, the threshold, the doorway, or the liminal space between where God resides in us. Okay, so God is in all of us. It's quite wonderful, really, or call it goddess, if you like, completely. Well, I like to call it divine creative because that allows for any expression. It's divine. It's a way of understanding light. And when you find that space that you're in, your little halo, which is there for you, and you find that space and you go, oh, there's something massive, spacious behind it. My awareness, when I close my eyes, that awareness is infinite. There's an infinite awareness there behind which I can create anything. I have the pure potential and the pure, through my intention and manifestation, I can bring anything out from that awareness and use it to change my consciousness. Okay, so that is the key to incredible new agey, holistic healing kind of arts. All right, no, I don't think anybody else is doing this. It's pretty awesome. So there's the key there, the halo. There's your halo. There's your all-seeing eye. It's your third eye, your all-seeing eye. It's your halo. All these things are the same thing. And a very good character that shows it very nicely as well, Shiva. So in Hindu cosmology, the dancing Nataraj of Shiva, more than likely you've seen this before, I hope. It's pretty a powerful image. But there he is dancing in his single eye, folks. So this is like the ring of creativity, and it's a combination of creation and destruction, instantaneous. But that's his halo. So it's the same concept of dancing in of being in front of his single eye. He's in front of his single eye because this is actually third person, because he's being objective. Do you know why? Because he stood in front of it. He's in front of that single eye. He doesn't go behind it. He's placed in front of it, which is exactly what I've shown you today with your experiments. So the Hindu god of creation is and destruction, the combination of the two, chaos, if you like. He stands in that doorway, in the liminal threshold, right there between what is and what can be. And this is the idea of having that kind of the hatched edge that you'll become aware of there, right? And so what I'm showing you today is how to go first person, all right? How to perceive transits in a wholly new light, and actually how to bring light to yourself, because this is light. This really is light. People talk about, oh, I'm going to bring light, but this really is perceiving light, okay? Because we're in it all the time. We are actually connected to the creation all the time. So when you look at the center of the Aristotelian cosmology, and I've shown you the awareness at the center, which is our corporeal body, showing that we have divine creation right there. It's part of us. And in Jungian psychology, in Jungian terms, that is the unconscious. And it's kind of like where the shadow resides. It's all the different parts. And then it's bringing forward through psyche, through the working out of the psyche, stuff moving forwards into consciousness. So stuff that comes out of awareness and into consciousness. But it's about seeing that, recognizing it, and then knowing that in the Aristotelian cosmology, the Empyrean, which is the light. So we have the divine. Our divine center is within us, but at the edge is the divine center as well. And so it's like God is within us. So it's like, and it's called the unmoved mover of the world. That's what Dante called it. So we are unmoving, because like as I was explaining, walking or driving a car or sitting on a bus or in a tube, things arrive in you. Yeah, so you can sit on the tube train, right, and you're going through the stops on the station, and you're actually physical corporeal body's going nowhere, but then something else arrives in you, another station, and the doors open and things arrive in that space. Or on a bus, you're doing the bus stop, you stood at the bus stop, you get on the bus and it moves you on a journey. But because you're sat in a seat, you're technically not going anywhere, but everything's moving through you. And this is the power of actual transits. Transit meaning something that moves, that passes through. And you could even do it by in forms of meditation. I had a great moment where I've been practicing this a lot, and I went to sit walking along Hove Promenade, and I sat on a bench and looked out to the sea, and I had the promenade in front of me, and I was doing single eye. I was doing the all-seeing eye, the awareness, and I was seeing things coming into my space on the edge, appearing from the edge on the promenade. Something appears from the edge, goes across the center of my vision, and then disappears off the other edge. And then something coming the other way, and then seabirds flying overhead and appearing above through that space, appearing. And these are things that would trigger my consciousness, because then I would be doing naturally what I'm always doing. My mind then hooks into them immediately. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's, and I start giving it descriptions, names, and various things, archetypes. And that is the key to archetypal understanding and why things have rulerships, because the planets are all in us. The planets are in us, but how we key into them. So there. I hope you're enjoying this. How many minutes have I got there? So let's see what the next slide is. There we go. So actually, that is a bit like what I've shown you. Your awareness is at the center, and the Aristotelian cosmology stretches out from yourself at center. And you can see it's like the movement of mind. The mind is moving all the time, the movement of mind, but it has an order to it. And my book goes into this in great detail. It shows you how to do it. And so the book itself is a really, really interesting journey. And I hope you're going to really enjoy it, because it's pretty cool and groovy, and it's based on a lot of everything I've been showing you today. And I'll be doing a workshop soon, so do come along to that. And I'll be releasing a workbook so you can do it with yourself at home and so forth. But that's how it is. There's your space, yeah? So your space in front of you is your 7 spheres of consciousness. And your awareness is your light center, okay? And that's what it's when you're first person, that's how you're looking at the world. And these symbols basically are kind of like planets, okay? So now it comes to look briefly, I can bring in the Thema Mundi, yeah, because of course that's what they're all going to want. Hellenistic astrology. This is called the world theme, Thema Mundi, the theme of the world, and it's the mythical horoscope used in Hellenistic astrology that shows the supposed positions of the 7 visible planets at, wait for it, the beginning of the universe. The beginning of the universe. Do you remember how we did that closed eyes experiment, and then we opened our eyes and we had the Big Bang, and we suddenly realized that everything was filled up within our space with stuff, and they were stuff that we labeled as consciousness? Well, here you have the Thema Mundi doing exactly the same thing. So the Thema Mundi is in fact the Hellenistic key to being geocentric and humanocentric. This ties in with the Aristotelian cosmology perfectly. The only difference being is the sun appears to be in the 2nd house, and then you've got that order, the same order of planets as the spheres, but the sun is here. Why, you ask, is the sun there? Is because the moon and the sun are the luminaries, and we live in the world of light. We are in the world of light. The moon is the light that is literally within. It's like that reflected light of sun. So that is literally the imago. It is how we conjure up images in our mind. So it's sensory responses and reactions. That's why the moon rules Cancer, which is a very sensitive sign. So you have the moon and the ascendant. This is like eyes closed, right? My eyes are closed here because I'm receiving lunar image, yeah, which is the first sphere of my awareness. Past my awareness. My awareness is pure and unsullied, my connection to God or Goddess or the divine creator. And then I have the first sphere is the moon, because the moon is that we're in the sublunar sphere. So the moon represents that first sphere, but we are also in the world of light. So when I open my eyes, then I have to have the light. Yeah, that's why the sun is placed there in the Thema Mundi. So you've got I believe the beginning of the world is, yes, the world begins with my eyes closed. Yes, I'm aware. I have begun. I am existing. I am a being with my eyes closed. And then when I open them, bling, I'm in the world of light, which is the sun, which is the second one. And then I would then move forwards from that into my life, and I would be Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, which is the order of the spheres. Okay, the only reason that the sun has been moved here is because of, as I said, you can start with being, emotional responses and reactions, the five senses. The five senses of the body are lunar ruled. Okay, and then the sun. So that's the Thema Mundi. Okay, so that's going to be a fantastic lecture at some of the big conferences. Looking forward to doing that. I hope I'm invited if people want me to come along. And then here is the planet. So this is the 7 ages of man, which Shakespeare talked about. And this is the Time Lord system that I use in my book. Okay, so this is the Time Lord system in my book, and again, it's the idea. It works on the idea of the Aristotelian spheres. So there you can see the sun is back in its middle position. Okay, which is balanced in between the inferior planets and the superior planets, and so there we go. All right, so you've got the superior planet. Then you go back to the moon. Anyway, whatever. But you can see there the order of the 7 ages, and that's the system that I'm using for my psychotherapeutic technique. Okay, so but you'll see that in my book, because I do hope I've entertained you enough and given you enough stuff to think about to want to read my book. You're going to end up with this, or one of the images to end up with. There's several images actually I wanted to show you, but this is 400 AD. Do you know how I showed you the Dendra zodiac and everyone's holding up a sphere? Yeah, well, here they are doing it again, but this is 400 AD, and look, they're still doing the same thing as they did in the Egyptian temple. They're holding it up. Yeah, they're holding up the world of all the planets, and here you've got that's Terra, T-E-R-R-A, Terra, Earth at the center, and then you have the planetary order, lunar, and you can see them there: Mercury, Venus, Sol, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the zodiac signs. Yeah, and then you can see elements and stuff, and it's the same kind of thing as I was showing. It's the Aristotelian cosmology, slightly different interpretation. So that's Macrobius's commentary, and then this really is pretty awesome. So I showed you the single eye experiment, the all-seeing eye, and I would like to draw your attention to the far right-hand side of this picture. So as you can see here, this is a picture. I can't remember quite where it's from, in one of the Egyptian temples. But on the far right, the character here, you can see Thoth, okay, who is the time, Thoth rules time, and Hermes Trismegistus was born out of Thoth. Hermes Trismegistus developed Thoth. And here is Thoth. And what's Thoth doing? Thoth has got his hands up like this, or her hands. Thoth has got its hands up like this. Yeah, what are Thoth's pronouns? There we go. That's a joke for someone, or whatever, right? Anyway, Thoth's got his hands up. There we go. Look, what's he doing? He's saying there's a space in which I am aware of, and then you can see the eye of Horus, which is the all-seeing eye, the third eye, the single eye, this single eye of Horus that floats in space. And there it is, floating in space. Yeah. And it's even supported on a little thing. It's like a little frame that's supporting the floating space, a big circle, a big halo. But that's Thoth there, from which the word time comes from, and writing, and Hermes Trismegistus, and therefore astrology comes from Thoth. And there's Thoth doing this. Ah, interesting, right? And then you have these different gods, and these are like, to me, like the spheres. Yeah. And there are different distances. Look how these colored shapes go down, and then they flip their thing, they go further and further away. And to me, this is like aspects and orbs of influence. Yeah. Because when something is really up close in your life, it's really obvious, right? It's like, whoa, like a conjunction, something really obvious there. The further away it goes. So what we're looking at there is this idea of distance, space, and time with regards to how it affects consciousness. Okay. And I believe that might be a clue, because I quite like how these different measurements seem to grow in size, and they seem to be ascending down as well. They seem to be going in a sort of, there's a sort of sense of flow or movement from the single eye space. So there we go. Okay. That's one. And then this hieroglyph. So you've got the two hands doing this, yeah, which of course is single eye. This is Heka, which means magic, twisted loop with three things in it. People say that's DNA. And this one means a sealed scroll, indicating that it's a hidden thing. And what I've shown you tonight, technically, has actually been hidden quite well, particularly since Copernicus and Galileo, and since Newton. And it's time, with Pluto and Aquarius, my dear friends, to bring it back, you know, because we need it, because the Earth is in an ecological mess. There is massive inequality in society. The churches are empty, and it's time to see the world anew, and to see that we have divine creation within us. And astrology plays a huge role in that, because it gives us details and gives us meaning to what we're experiencing in our unification with our consciousness. Remember, all is one. Everything is one. So the planets and the stars are in me as they are in you too. So everything is one. So when the seasons change, yeah, so we're in winter now and it's going to be spring soon. But do you know what? That spring is going to be happening in me, like it's going to be happening in you. And that's why astrology works. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I think I've timed it quite well, actually. It's 8:51. Did anybody have anything to say to me about that? What did you reckon? You don't have to say anything, actually, to be honest. I just hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you got something from it. And I hope that you buy my book, because it's a self-published book at first. I'm putting the first edition out, and I really need some support from everybody who knows me, you know, in the world of astrology. So please buy my book. You're going to love it. It's got some really interesting stuff in it, and it's a really good piece of work. It's really good. So all I can say is, so I can keep telling you how good it is. It's a wonderful piece. I've had a real professional work on it, and it's lovely. So please buy my book. Please help me to get my book published. Write me a good review, and then I can take it further, you know, because it's going to go somewhere. You know, it's going to have a thing. It's the unmoved mover of. Hopefully, people will be like, "Wow, that's interesting." So thank you very much for tuning in tonight and listening to my talk. I really appreciate you being here. I don't know who you are or who's there, but I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope that it, in turn, just to remind you that I think I'm the first person to bring this to you all. So please credit me, and please invite me to conferences and talks and workshops. I'm in a place where I can give workshops, you know, as in invite me to do your things, invite me to your groups, whatever you want to do. It's a really interesting. I can do a full weekend workshop. I can even do a week-long retreat. So anything goes, right? The divine order is now launched.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you. That was really interesting. I don't know, does anyone have any questions for Julian? Or if there's no questions, we can all say thank you to Julian and wish ourselves a good evening. I'm not seeing anyone unmuting at the moment. Oh, possibly one.
I put my question in the chat. How do we get your...
Thank you, Theolin. Can you remember an email address? Can I tell you? Venables.Julian.
Venables.Julian
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com. Okay, yes.
But I also have a website.
What's the price requested?
Say again? I haven't actually completely settled on the cost of it yet. I'm about to work that out, but I've got the ISBN number now.
Right.
Probably around about $15.99.
All right. With some postage.
And if I can get print on demand on Amazon, then people can get it print on demand. But at the moment, I'm about to print 200 copies of on really nice quality paper. I'm actually doing a very thick paper and it's really well printed, the book, because the first edition is going to be a collector's item, I hope.
And Julian, if we buy directly from you, do we get it signed, please?
Yes, 100%. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Of course.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when you finish the publishing and have the price, you update your website and your Facebook page.
I'm going to put it on my website. Yeah.
Okay.
So people in England will be able to buy it, and it'll be probably $15.99. Might be a little bit more, but it'll be $15.99 with postage and packing. Will get you a really very high quality printed version, first edition. I'm hoping to get. I'm going to use it to take it to publishers in London to try and get a publishing deal.
Right.
That's what I'm at. So I'm taking some of the copies I'm going to have are going to be to hand out to different publishers, so that they then go, "What's this?" I can say, "I've actually done something. I'm not just a spaced out hippie. I've actually done something, and it's really good."
Yeah.
And then they can decide for themselves what to do with it. You know?
What's your timing? What's your timing like?
My timing is I'm doing final proofing right now. Right. So I've got the version up, and I press read aloud, and it reads to me on my computer, and I listen to it, and I'm making changes into it, you know. So I'm already down at the very last. I'm doing little things like capitalizations, punctuation and grammar, and you know, it's that close. And so probably going to the printers next week, actually. I sort of Mercury retrograde, waiting for that to happen, you know, and it's kind of happened now. So
sensible, you know. Very sensible.
So hopefully, when I get it back from the printers, maybe Mercury going into Aquarius, something like that, you know.
Right.
And I'll be putting it on my website.
Right.
And I'll be telling everybody as well. So I'll put, you know, but do send me an email, Theolin, and
yes.
I shall.
Yeah. Well, I shall be in Sussex in May, and I think we could have some interesting conversations. Because I'm an astrologer, probably old enough to be your mother, and I've been doing it for a while. But I also work with Kabbalah, so
yes, excellent.
Overlaps with what you're talking about states of consciousness and the way I work as well. So yeah, I shall be in Sussex in May, so maybe we can meet up.
Very nice.
Also, I would say, I'll just add to it, is that I've had a lot of experience bringing my work from self-publishing in the late 90s to then getting a publishing deal, and the processes that you have to go through quite familiar to me. So I might be able to, you know,
excellent. Thank you for that.
As an enthusiastic encourager.
Thank you very much.
Because you can do
that would be really, really very nice.
Right.
So when you email me, venables.julian@gmail.com, put your mobile phone in there as well, yeah?
Yeah, okay then.
Yeah, and then I'll call you. Okay? And we can have a chat.
And you can find me on at theolin.com. That's my website.
Okay, brilliant. Theolin.com. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to me talk this evening.
Yeah.
You know, a really interesting journey, and I finally got it together into a book. So
yeah, enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done, Julian. Well done.
And, see you all again soon then.
Yes, see you all again soon.
Run.
Bye bye.